Okay, I started that one. Glad I didn't start the fourth one because I would have started in the wrong place. I forgot that it just automatically shut off, so I put it in the freezer to cool it down and took the rubber silicone of the OtterBox off of it. So where I left off was, and now since the dog attack, he was worried about what he wasn't worrying about, things you don't foresee. That was his biggest fear. The things he could see as threats he could at least do something about, but what about all the things he hadn't thought about? He should have known dogs would become a problem. What else had he missed? Finally, his shift was over. Albert showed up to relieve him. He hadn't seen anyone pass during his shift. In fact, the three of them hadn't seen anyone get past the National Guard roadblock in the last 12 hours. Thinking about it, there hadn't been one report over the radio from any of the OPs during his shift. He asked Albert if anyone had called in a sighting on his first shift. The boy told him no. Mark made his way back to camp. He asked Roman if he'd heard anything over the radio today. The answer was negative. It seemed strange to him that no one had reported anything in 12 hours. Hope that doesn't fall out. I don't think it will. What could that mean? He went down the list. The National Guard could be doing a really good job. The guys at this one were watching the road pretty well, but Mark thought that he could detour around them without much problem. The refugees could all be walking straight into the roadblocks, but that didn't seem likely. Surely some of them were smart enough not to get caught. Maybe all the ones who were getting through looked harmless, and the observers didn't feel the need to call them into the command post. He hoped so. But even if that was true, how long until it changed? Or perhaps the observation posts weren't in the right places. Maybe people were taking wider detours than they had predicted. Maybe some, but surely not all. As Mark crawled into his sleeping bag, he felt that he'd never be able to go to sleep with all of the random thoughts rattling around in his head. Fortunately, he was wrong. There's Mark crawling. Oh, so he went to sleep. Sorry, I'm tired. Mark, wake up, Albert whispered as he shook the snoring man. What? What's the matter? Mark, still half asleep, mumbled. Roman pulled the cord. Didn't you feel the tent fall? No, he answered as he slowly came back to reality. Let's go. Mark unzipped his bag and pulled on his boots. He grabbed his rifle and chest rig and started toward the observation post. The hands on his watch glowed, and they told him it was almost 1 o'clock. He realized he'd been sleeping very soundly and not even dreaming. It was too bad he hadn't gotten 6 or 7 hours sleep. He could have used them. They crawled up to Roman. The youth put his finger up to his lips and pointed down the road. What do you got, Roman? Mark asked in a whisper. 11 people crossed the road, most with rifles. I could see them good when they crossed the road. Right now they're under that big oak tree on our side of the road. Here, look through the binoculars, and you can make them out. Mark took the field glasses and looked at the spot Roman had indicated. At first, he couldn't see anything, but then he made out a group in a circle. He couldn't tell how many. They were being very still and very quiet. He handed the binoculars to Albert. Did you call it in? Yes. The sheriff said he'd be here in 20 minutes. That was 3 or 4 minutes ago. He said to call him back if they moved out, Roman answered. All right, let's keep an eye on them. About 10 minutes later, the group stood and started walking away from the OP on the side of the road. Roman called it in to the sheriff, and he said they were still about 5 minutes away. Mark and his crew had a good view of the direction that the group were heading. Whoever they were very careful. They were walking slowly on the side of the road in the high grass that grew next to the fence. They had gone about 1/4 mile when all of a sudden they hit the dirt. A second or two later, Mark heard the hum of tires on the asphalt. A minute later, he could just make out the lights on the bus. He called Kurt on the radio and told him that the group had hidden in the grass next to the fence. Okay, Mark, I read you. I want you to stop me at least 100 yards away from them. Roger that, Mark answered. He could make out the bus quite well now. It was obviously slowing down as the whining of the big tires got slower and lower and lower. Stop now, he ordered into the radio. The highway behind the bus became red from the brake lights, and the brakes squealed like fingernails on a chalkboard. You're about 150 yards from them. They're right up against the fence on your left side. Got it. Thanks. Kurt's voice crackled over the radio. A second later, the same voice came over nothing but the cool, crisp air. This is Sheriff Kurt Thompson of Wilson County. I know there are 11 of you up against the fence. I want you all to stand up with your hands over your heads. Leave your rifles on the ground. I've got 30 men here. Don't give us any trouble. Mark could barely make out the reply. We don't want no trouble, and we ain't done nothing wrong. We're just on our way to Luling to see my cousin. You just leave us be, John Law, and we'll be out of your jurisdiction in no time. I'm sure that's true, Kurt replied, but I can't have a large armed group of pilgrims wandering through my county. Not only is it not safe for my constituents, it's not safe for you all. Some of the people around here are getting real jumpy about strangers. They figure sometimes it's better to shoot first and ask questions later. Now you all come on out, we'll gather up your guns, and if everything is as you say it is, we'll give you a ride across the county. That'll save you 2-3 days of walking maybe. Mister, that sounds like a good offer, but we ain't giving up our guns for nobody. Not no sheriff, not no FEMA people, not even for the president. The Second Amendment says I got a right to keep and bear arms, and that's one right I ain't giving up, no matter what. Mark found himself in a moral dilemma. The man was right, but Kurt was just trying to do his job and protect the people in his county. Even these 11 people. Mark put himself in each of the two men's shoes. He would do the same thing each of them was doing if he was in their places. He hoped Kurt had a solution. Listen, mister, Kurt said, I'm not going to stand here and debate constitutional law with you all night. I agree that you have rights. I'm not disputing that. But I took an oath to uphold the law in this county, and I can't do that if I let every Tom, Dick, and Harry who sneaks into my county with a bunch of rifles run loose. Y'all come on out without your rifles and show me your IDs. If none of you have any warrants out on you, I'll ask you to get on the bus. We'll pick up your rifles, and when we get to the other side of the county, you'll get them back. Until then, I'll guarantee your safety. I give you my word. And what if I say no? Then you leave me with only two choices. My men and I can try to disarm you, but that could get real bloody real quick. And we all have families to go home to. My other option is I can get on the radio to the National Guard. I'm sure they'd be happy to have the men on the roadblock you went around come over here and take you back to one of the Bexar County shelters. Those boys are getting paid to do the dangerous jobs, so I guess I'd let them come over here and earn their money. Yep, that's what I'd do.